Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them, and we always start with the pick of the week. And this week's pick of the week, Somna, issue number 1, from Distillery. So Distillery is a brand new comic book publisher. They've released a couple titles already. They did like the Devil's Cut anthology that like gave a little snippet from each book that was debuting. We have Gone, the book from Jock. It was decent, it was alright, but this one, Somna, is by Becky Cloonan and Tula Lotay. An amazing coloring, by the way, from Lee Lowridge, Dee Cunniffe, and Tula Lotay, and Lucas Gattoni on the lettering. I gotta be very careful about what pages I show you from this book because it's a little erotic, right? It's a little erotic and it's a very interesting story, and the way that the two art styles, because both Becky Cloonan and Tula Lotay are doing the art duties in this book, they're also of course writing it together. This book was awesome. So it's like set back in the days of like witch trials and witch finders and all this kind of stuff, right? It's about this woman. She's been having these sexual desires. She wants to please herself. She wants to please her husband. And it's all kind of coming together in these visions that she's having of this like almost demonic, satanic, dark figure that's like in her dreams. She starts exploring herself sexually. Her husband, who is the witch finder, whose job is to go out there and find women who are accused of being witches and burn them at the stakes. He's like, what are you doing? If anybody heard those noises. So it is about a woman trying to discover her sexuality in those days, but the way it's told and structured is absolutely freaking brilliant. Now, Becky Cloonan and Tula Lotay have two very different styles of art, but the way it works together. Tula Lotay kind of does these more like fantasy kind of bits, like whenever there's like maybe a fantasy going on or a dream sequence or even maybe something a little bit more steamy's the wrong word, but maybe something a little bit more evocative or something. That's just the way that the art shifts and changes. Maybe like when desire comes in. It's really interesting, it's really cool, and it should feel disconnected artistically, but it doesn't. It's also incredibly well written, incredibly well paced, and the lettering is phenomenal. Like throughout the course of reading this book, I was like, who is this letterer? And I am not familiar with Lucas Gattoni, but man, oh man, I really love this book. I love the colors. I love the composition. I love the different approach by the different artists. Here, for instance, is a page where Tula does a page, Becky does a page, but it works, and it all feels like one cohesive whole. It's very impressive. It's a $10, it's a $9 book, actually. Wow, if that was from Marvel, that'd be like $15. Anyway, so Somna is a $9 book, but it's got a lot of pages. It's dense, but it doesn't take a long time to read, but it has a nice flow to it, and it feels very complete and unified. So Somna, issue number 1 from Distillery, makes Distillery's very first pick of the week. Let's jump over to Marvel. We got a new Carnage book, Carnage issue number 1. This is from Torrin Grunbeck and Pari Perez. It's just kind of okay. I kind of fell off that last Carnage run. Like, I wasn't really quite digging what Robbie was doing at first, but then it kind of pulled itself back together. I liked how that wound up, but then it just kind of went into that Death of the Venomverse thing. I don't know. Basically, Carnage has got the powers of the god, or a god, so now he's running around trying to start the Church of Carnage. And it's not really doing anything for me. Like, the art's okay, the story's okay, but it's just kind of okay. It's a cool cover, but it really didn't scratch that Carnage itch that I really wanted scratched. Now, of course, this series is promising the reunification of Cletus Cassidy with the Carnage symbiote, and it kind of just happens randomly, off the wall, out of nowhere. The pacing was off. It was a bit clunky. I just didn't really vibe with that very much. Then we got Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars Battleworld, issue number 1. So this is a book by Tom DeFalco and Pat Olaf, old school comic book creators. I'm a big fan of Tom DeFalco, actually. He wrote a very long run on Fantastic Four that is one of my personal favorites. I just have the very personal attachment to the Tom DeFalco, Paul Ryan run from the 90s. So I like Tom DeFalco. I got to host a panel with him this year. That was like a dream come true. Getting to meet him, telling him how important his Fantastic Four run was for me in my personal life. And this isn't too bad either. You know, it's pretty decent. It's got that old school feel. It's not going to change your life. It's not going to like make you go, wow, Tom DeFalco's like the greatest comic book creator of all time, because he's not. But it does have that classic kind of vibe and sense. So what happens is, at the very tail end of Secret Wars, while Reed and Cap are trying to figure out how to get the heroes from Battleworld back to Earth, it seems like the other Beyonders are doing their own experiment. They pluck Spider-Man away, bring him to a different part of Battleworld, put him through these trials and tribulations. Like I said, it just was like nice old school fun, but it doesn't really add anything to Secret Wars, doesn't add anything to the mythology, but it's just nice fun. And that's what Tom DeFalco and Pat Olliffe usually bring, and have usually always brought to the comic book page. They continue to do so here. Then we got another one of those throwback books, Daredevil, Dark Armor. No, it's Daredevil, Black Armor. This is by D.H. Chichester. Yeah, who wrote Daredevil during that time where he got the black armor costume. It's a clunky issue. It's okay. Like, if you are super hardcore connected to that Fade to Black story that he did, it does pick up right after that. It kind of fits itself in between certain stories from that era of Daredevil. But if you're not already a fan of that era of Daredevil, this is not going to turn you into a fan of that era of Daredevil, nor will it encourage you to go to that era of Daredevil and check out that era of Daredevil. Just like this review, it was a bit clunky. Alright, there you go. Then we got The Incredible Hulk here with issue number 6, a pretty solid issue of The Incredible Hulk. A book that started off so strong, but has started getting a bit inconsistent, and that is mostly because of the art. And I appreciate what the writer Philip Kennedy Johnson is doing. When there's a different artist coming in, he's trying to break it up into a different story, maybe a little bit of a different horror vibe than what we were used to in the first couple of issues. But in this issue, we get Nick Klein back, and the artwork is great. There is another super gnarly Hulk transformation here. I really do like this story. I like this flow. I like this art. I just wish this book would be a little bit more strongly consistent with its art, and it would probably really just become one of the best Marvel comics out there. But Incredible Hulk number 6 introduces a new iteration of Ghost Rider, continues the story of Hulk being hunted down by all of these other monsters, but it was pretty solid and I enjoyed it. The Amazing Spider-Man 38, another rec wrap chapter. It wraps it up though, thankfully, but I didn't like it. But it does have the very last few pages of here of this issue are kind of mostly like setting up the gang war stuff. I am excited to see the gang war stuff. It's why I have stuck it through this rec wrap story, which I absolutely hate. So there you go. I liked the ending, but I did not like the rest of that book. Sensational She-Hulk is here with issue number 2, and I'm liking it. I liked the first issue of this relaunch of Sensational She-Hulk by Rainbow Rowell, who had already done the previous She-Hulk book, but they just kind of canned that one, relaunched it, and I like it. This issue in particular, the Hulk shows up, and there's some nice, fun kind of banter going on there. They're referencing things I think that happened in the previous volume. I wasn't reading that whole volume, but it easily caught me up, so it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It catches you up on the story, it maintains a level of fun and excitement, and it has some nice action. I thought the first issue had some decent enough action, but nothing really with higher stakes. This one raises the stakes just a little bit, but it, just like a She-Hulk book should be, it has a nice sense of humor, buoyancy, fun, and action. Sensational She-Hulk, issue number 2. I liked it. Captain Marvel is here with issue number 2, the second issue of the new volume, written by Alyssa Wong. And I liked it. I thought the first issue was decent and okay. It introduces this new character. I believe she's a new character. She gets a hold of the Negabands. They get connected to her and Carol Danvers. So now when she clicks the Negabands, they like swap places, kind of like the Rick Jones, old school Captain Marvel kind of vibe. But it works. I like these characters. I like them trying to figure this out. And then you got Janice Vell involved as well. He's seemingly dies in the previous issue, but he's actually been like possessed by this big bad who's after these negabands. What could easily come across as just trying to be a desperate tie-in to the continuity of the new Marvel's movie or whatever, actually has its own identity, has its own energy, and it's actually been a pretty solid run on Captain Marvel so far. Let's jump over to DC. And from DC, we have Batman Offworld issue number 1, the start of a new miniseries by Jason Aaron and Doug Mahnke. So Jason Aaron, I believe this is his first work on Batman. He's done work at DC, but really at Vertigo with Scalped. I don't think he's ever done any proper DC work, actually. I guess if I'm wrong, correct me please in the comments. And one of my favorite things is when I am wrong about something and I get corrected in the comments. Like last week I bitched about how the Marvel facsimiles have this glossy paper, and so do the DC, so it makes the paper all, the colors all gaudy and stuff. They should take a lesson from the G.I. Joe facsimile that Skybound just released. And then someone's like, yo, I thought DC did it on newsprint paper. So I actually went back to my shop and looked, and yo, you were right. So, you know, I'm wrong. I'll admit it. It's fine. It's not often, but I'll admit it when it happens. But one thing I don't think I'm wrong about is the excitement level for me on this book. I absolutely loved it. First of all, Doug Mahnke's artwork is brilliant. The colors pop so freaking well. What this is this is a story set in the earlier days of Batman's career. When he first finds out that aliens and alien civilizations exist, he knows that one day he's going to come across some superpowered alien beings in Gotham, so he puts himself in a situation where he's going to have to deal with it, and he very quickly gets in over his head. The characterization was spot on. The story had moments of light humor, but also very serious gravity and threat and weight. And I think Jason Aaron did a fantastic job in this book. There was a moment that had me laugh out loud. It involved 3 punches. When you read this book, you're going to know what I'm talking about. And tell me you didn't think that that was awesome. Batman Offworld, issue number 1, though, my favorite DC book of the week, but very close at second was Batman Superman World's Finest, issue number 21. Mark Waid is crafting kind of like a prequel to Kingdom Come Here. So in a previous arc of this title, he introduced us to Boy Thunder, which was a soul survivor, superpowered character from another reality that Superman kind of takes in as his ward and sidekick. But he starts losing control of his powers. He starts giving in to some of the darker feelings inside of him. And Superman has to kind of like come to terms with that and to blows with this dude. And he winds up going off into another reality. We were taught or showed and revealed in that reality. I guess we were taught as well. But we were revealed, it was revealed in that reality that he eventually becomes Magog of the Kingdom Come universe. So in this one, Batman and Superman travel to the Kingdom Come universe to find Boy Thunder, who is now Thunder Man, and well on his way to becoming Magog. So you got Kingdom Come Superman and Batman against our Superman and Batman from the past over Boy Thunder / Thunderman, and it's got Dan Mora artwork. It's big, it's bombastic, it's comic booky, it is brilliant. Tamara Bonvillain on the coloring, one of the greatest colorists in the business right now. This book is awesome, and it's only getting better and better every single issue. Wonder Woman number 3, Tom King's Wonder Woman. Extremely verbose, interesting structure, nothing happens. Let me just be straight up honest with you. I like the themes in this book. I like the idea of the story. What I don't like is the way that Tom King is writing this book, the way he's executing it. The artwork by Daniel Samperi is awesome, it's great. But here's what happens. Like a lot of Tom King books, it's a lot of words, a lot of text, which a lot of words and a lot of text, it means the same thing. So I guess I'm being like Tom King right now. So let me see if I can simplify this. Wonder Woman walks into an office building. That's this issue. That's the entire issue. We get some revelation about the villains and their history. So there's some exposition as well. But as far as what actually happens in this issue, Wonder Woman walks into an office building. That's it. And it takes a long time for that to happen. And it takes a whole lot of words. It takes a whole lot of trying to show off and a little dose of pretension. Wonder Woman, I'm not fully sold on it. I'm not fully sold out of it. But I need some movement. I need some dynamic quality to this book because it's not delivering. It feels weighed down by its own pretension. Does that make sense? Green Lantern, War Journal, issue number 3. Philip Kennedy Johnson doing a great job with the character of John Stewart. Something funky's going on with his powers. There's this new version of almost a Black Lantern out there. It involves lanterns from other realities. There's an interesting mystery being developed. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of pathos. There's a lot of drama. I love it. This is what I want out of superhero comics. I want the melodramatic stuff for sure, but I also want big bang action. I also want interesting characterization, and I want cool, fun ideas being played around from the past, present, and into the future, and that's what Philip Kennedy Johnson is delivering in the pages of Green Lantern War Journal. In my opinion, one of the better John Stewart-focused Green Lantern books we've had in a pretty long time. Then we got Superman here with issue number 8. We're learning more about the origins of this chained character, or the unchained, whatever. I think they call him the Chained, right? I like how the chains are kind of like a reference to that famous Superman issue where he's like, is it, popping out of the chains? Is that Neil Adams? Is Neil Adams doing homage to one? I think that's Neil Adams. Correct me down in the comments, please. I'm living for it. But Superman number 8, I'm loving what Josh Williamson's doing with this book. A lot of references to some of my favorite eras of Superman, like the Joe Kelly, Jeff Loeb kind of days. A lot of references to the animated series from the 90s, which I love as well. Josh Williamson is into the same Superman stuff that I am, and it's obvious in this book. And so I think a lot of people my age, and I am just barely over 40, 42, as the answer to the meaning of life, according to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I guess right now I'm just in the zone. So anyway, Superman number 8. What am I doing? Is this a comic book review, or is this just trying to do stand-up bits? I have no idea. Maybe it's a mixture of both. Superman number 8. Really like it. Really like the explanation of this new character, his ties to Connor Kent, his ties to Lex Luthor. I love that they're playing up on the legacy of Luthor. There's some characters we haven't seen in a while, some references to books that we haven't had referenced in a while. Man, Josh and company are killing it on that book. I think it's super awesome. I guess it's just trying to be a stand-up bit, but it's so cheesy and corny and cringy and other C words that sound like that. Anyway, Nightwing is here with issue number 108. Tom Taylor's doing a good job with Nightwing. It hits its ups and downs. When Bruno Redondo was here, it kind of soars a little bit. In this one, I think it's, who is it here? It's Stephen Burns. Stephen Burns doing the art, and it's fine, and it's good, and it's clean, and it brings us that same kind of style. But what I like about this is that Tom Taylor's kind of playing around with that Rick Grayson era, and he's doing it in an interesting way. It's fun. The character of B is actually utilized very well. And yeah, you got Nightwing dressed as a pirate, and it's cool, and it works, and it's light, but at the same time, it's taking itself seriously, but not too seriously. Nightwing number 108, I liked it. Then we also got Titans number 5 from Tom Taylor. This is the end of the first arc, I guess, setting up some stuff to come for Titans Beast World. Now, I've read the first 2 issues of Titans Beast World already, and I like it. As far as a big event goes, we'll see if they can really pull it off, but as a Titans event, it works, and it's going to have some big ramifications for Titans fans. But to nobody's surprise, Beast World is somehow tied into the powers of Beast Boy. So what you have to do is set up the dangerous aspect of Beast Boy's powers and what they are doing to that character and elevate that character a little bit, and that's what's done in the pages of Titans number 5. I really think that Tom Taylor and Nicola Scott have really given their all to these characters. They are tasked with an unenviable task, which is to elevate the Titans in the absence of the Justice League. And the Titans, as popular as they are, as well respected as some of their runs and books are, they've never been on that Justice League level. And I'm not saying this book is getting them there, but I am saying that Tom and Nicola care about these characters, and that comes through. And this is a really good setup of these characters for Beast World. So I would definitely recommend Beast World to most DC fans, especially to Titans fans. But this Titans book, it's been winning me over. Then we got Jay Garrick, The Flash, issue number 2. So we had Jay Garrick's long-lost daughter return in the pages of Stargirl, The Lost Children. There were a whole bunch of like teenage sidekicks that were whisked away and forgotten about. They actually never existed in the Golden Age, but Geoff Johns is redefining the Golden Age for his taste and setting it up for the DC Universe in the present and in the future. So this is Jay Garrick trying to come to terms with the fact that he's got a 15-year-old daughter again after not remembering her for decades and decades and decades. Some really nice stuff, some highly energetic artwork that has a lot of momentum to it. And I also like how this book has ties to the past, because as Jay Garrick has reconnected with his daughter, it's starting to unravel some memories that he had forgotten about his past adventures. So it's playing with the past, it's playing with the present, and it's setting up a very exciting future for the new Golden Age. Jay Garrick The Flash, written by Jeremy Adams, who's doing a very solid and consistent job there. Then we got Justice Society of America, issue number 7 by Geoff Johns, referencing some of his JSA work from before, but in this new Golden Age, right? And I really, really like this book. We got a different artist here. It's Santucci. It's all right. It's setting up some really interesting stuff, some more dynamics, some more fallout from the results of Stargirl, The Lost Children, and some really gnarly bits there. And they're basically trying to get some villains to team up with the Justice Society against the larger threat looming on the horizon. But if you like Geoff Johns and his work on Justice Society, and you haven't been reading this book, what's wrong with you? You got to get into it. Then we got Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, issue number 2. And just like in the first issue, it's not going to change your life. It's not telling us this really crazy awesome comic. It's not doing anything we've never seen before. It's not being innovative or anything like that. But what it is doing is exactly what is tasked of it, right? It is Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong. Very little Kong in here, but there are other monsters that are being utilized because Toyman has found out that in another reality, the Godzilla MonsterVerse exists, and he's able to bring them into the DC universe and kind of play with them like toys. And yes, you got Godzilla versus Superman in these pages. And if you're a Godzilla fan, if you're a MonsterVerse fan, if you're a Justice League fan, and if you're a fan of all of them, like if you're Venn diagram, like you're like Godzilla, DC, Superman, Justice League, MonsterVerse, Kong, if you're right there in the middle, this book is exactly what you've been wanting. It's fun, it's light, but at the same time, it has some epic scope, if that makes sense. Let's jump over to Image, where we've got Holy Roller, issue number 1. This is like one of my sleeper hits of the week, y'all. I am so freaking surprised by this book. So it's written by Andy Samberg and Rick Remender. That's right, Andy Samberg is developing a comic with Rick Remender, and it definitely has that Andy Samberg comedy, humor, and identity, and I really liked it. So it's about this kid whose dad was like a small town bowler. He's Jewish, he was a really great bowler, but this dude was bullied, right? He was bullied, he was told to get out of town. Eventually he leaves town. Years later, he comes back to town because his dad is not doing so well. He's been, diagnosed with cancer. He comes back to kind of just have that last meeting with him. He runs into his old bullies, and his old bullies, there's like an anti-Semite type thing going on here. So it's dealing with racism, it's dealing with bullying, but it's also dealing with the idea of running away from your past, being embarrassed by your family, and trying to forget that it's a part of you, and then being pulled back in and redefining who you are through those lenses. It's got heart. It's got charm, it's got comedy, it's got action, it was well paced, it was well crafted. Rick Remender knows what he's doing. The artwork is pretty good too. So if you are a fan of Andy Samberg, I would definitely recommend that you check out this book. And you know that if there's a celebrity attached, there's a pitch out there right now to Hollywood studios. But the Holy Roller, I really liked. It involves bowling too. So if you're a bowling fan, you might want to check that out. Universal Monsters, Dracula, issue number 2 from James Tynion IV and Martin Simmons. What I loved about the first issue is the same thing I love about the second issue. Amazing, textured, beautiful, creepy, eerie, and innovative artwork from Martin Simmons. So this is the exact same team as Department of Truth, but James Tynion's writing, it's not a strict adaptation of the Universal Monsters Dracula. And it's based definitely on the Universal movie from 1931 and not so much on the book. But it's not just a straight adaptation of it, it's actually playing around in between the scenes of that movie, developing things in between scenes and picking up on ideas and threads. And there are some moments that are referenced from that movie, and there may be even like similar moments from that movie, but for the most part, it's kind of playing in between the scenes of that movie, and I think that's how you do it. It's not just a straight up adaptation, which even with this amazing artwork could come across as boring story-wise. This is adding a lot to it. We get Van Helsing in the second issue. It's only 4 issues, so we got to move kind of quickly, just like the movie did. But we got Van Helsing. There's a little bit of a different take on him, a little bit more of a social take on him that I really appreciated, really liked. The artwork slapped. Dracula was cool. It was great. Then we got Tenament here from the Bone Orchard Mythos, issue number 6, a really dark issue. You got this kid falling down this like building, basically coming across all these different nightmarish versions that all these people are going through. At a moment, I felt disconnected from it, but I kept just being enamored by the atmospheric and incredibly complex artwork. The artwork has a great sense of design. It's got a great sense of composition, use of color. Dave Stewart on the coloring is fantastic as far as the page composition and the panel design and layout goes. I love this book, and it gets really creepy, it gets really dark, it gets really gnarly, and it sets up what's to come in the final issues, and I am loving this book. This is what I think Evil Dead Rise should have been, is something close to Tenement. Then we got Void Rivals here with issue number 6. Jonathan Kirkman is somebody who doesn't exist as far as I'm aware in the comic book industry, but Robert Kirkman, of course, is the writer of this book. This is part of the Inner John universe, which is tied into Transformers and the upcoming G.I. Joe books. But what I love about this book is it doesn't rely solely on that. Now, obviously, there are elements from the Transformers world and mythology that are definitely utilized and dealt with in the pages of Void Rivals, but it is telling its own story. It's establishing its own identity about these two different warriors from different different races that are actually more the same than they are different, and that's a big conspiracy that the two of them could unravel together. So now everybody's after him, but this is like the Great Escape issue. So it's got those ties to Transformers, but you don't have to know Transformers to appreciate this book, and I do appreciate what Kirkman and company are doing there. Then we got Hack Slash Back to School issue number 2 from Zoe Thorogood. As I detailed on Rockin' Robbie Live on Sunday night, I read, finally, It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth by Zoe Thorogood. I also thoroughly enjoyed that book, and the reason why I read it was because I was really digging the first issue of her Hack Slash book. I was also really digging her Creep Show book, and I'm really digging her Hack Slash book. Hack Slash has never been something I could really get into. I do love horror comics. I love gnarly, cool stuff. You get it here. You get cool experimentation and innovation with the artwork. But Hack Slash was not something I ever really sank my teeth into, and this is kind of like a little bit set in the earlier days, it appears, of Hack Slash. She's like a part of this team of monster hunters or something like that, but I like these characters, I like this world, but in particular, I like this artwork, and it does not shy away from being very colorful, very gnarly, violent, brutal, sexy, and flamboyant. This is awesome, and I am quickly becoming a huge fan of Zoe Thorogood. Then we got Gunslinger Spawn here with issue number 26. Dexter Soy is back. So I heard some time ago that Brett Booth was going to be leaving the pages of Gunslinger Spawn, and I was severely depressed about that. I was not looking forward to that. One of my favorite things about this book has been Brett Booth's artwork. Well, the last 2 issues we've had Dexter Soy on the artwork, and let me tell you, I think I'm liking it even better. The artwork in this absolutely slaps. It might be some of the best artwork we've had on Gunslinger Spawn yet, and that is not to talk any kind of smack about what Brett Booth was bringing to this run, but just really talking about, I guess, how awesome Dexter Soy is. The book is awesome. It's fun. This is a big recap issue, so if you haven't been reading Gunslinger Spawn and you jumped in like with issue number 25 or something, this is a good catch-up issue to get you rolling and going for the future of this series. I highly recommend it. Oh, also, Gunslinger Spawn. I don't know what it is, but it gets the smell of the week. I don't know how to describe it. It's just very classic, nostalgic kind of paper smell. It smells like when you go into a bookstore, but there's something else to it. I can't quite pick it up. It's like got an earthy tone. I'm going way too deep into trying to describe that smell. All right, Mortal Terror is a new book from Dark Horse. Dark Horse is basically being like, yo, we're just going to be straight up the horror comic book company. And you know what? I'm cool with that. We got a Mike Mignola cover. I'm giving that the cover of the week right there because I'm just a sucker. So this is an interesting premise for a book. The idea is that the world is mostly vampires, and there's it's like believed that there are mortals out there. There are humans out there who terrorize the vampires, but they're kind of like mythology. They're kind of like mythical, right? So like a lot of people don't believe them. There's a lot of characters from the Dracula book. They don't reveal certain twists that I think are obvious about who's the king of the vampires and who's the king of the mortals. But it's an interesting thing, but in execution, it didn't really feel supremely captivating or very engaging or enthralling. So it kind of felt like it's an interesting concept, but the execution of it just didn't quite work for me. However, Lunar Lodge did work for me. So whereas this is a vampire book, this is a werewolf book. And in this werewolf book, there's a dude whose wife says that she's going to a work conference in Scottsdale. This dude gets a call saying, yo, we got your reservations ready for Lunar Lodge. He's like, where are you at? Oh, we're in Montana or something. He's like, yo, my wife's lying to me. He thinks she's cheating on him. But actually, the Lunar Lodge is a hotel where people go and book it out during the nights of the full moon, and werewolves go there and they eat. There's a mystery there, but it was actually paced really well. The artwork was good. It's a breezy read. There's not a lot of words. You can go right through it, but don't go through it too quick because there is a little bit of nuance to the panels, to the layouts. Yeah, so I'm an idiot and completely forgot to charge my battery, and the video just cut out when I was in the midst of talking about Lunar Lodge. I was saying it has a nice flow to it, so if you are looking for some werewolf action, maybe you want to check out Lunar Lodge, issue number 1. Then from Mad Cave Studios, we have Eden Frost, issue number 1. It was a pretty decent debut. It was written very well. It had a nice flow and pace to it as well. It's about it's almost like about the Jewish legend of the Golem, right? And it's tied into these two kids that are running from this village, running from this tragedy, back in right after World War I or something like that. There's a lot of anti-Semitism being dealt with in this one, and a golem's like their protector, but everybody in the village is acting like the golem was the monster that attacked them and that the kids are responsible. So it doesn't really develop all of its story, it doesn't really fully hook you in, but the artwork was solid and the flow was great and the writing was great too. So I thought it was actually a pretty solid book. Eden Frost, issue number 1. The Devil That Wears My Face, issue number 2, also from Mad Cave. This is written by David Pepose, with artwork by Alex Cormack, lettering by Justin Birch. I love this book. It's about this demon, Legion, right? And he's possessed this entity in the first issue, and the Vatican sends one of their best exorcists to combat this demon, and the demon actually swaps places with this dude. So the dude's soul, I guess, the priest's soul is now in the body of the alleged possessed man, and now the demon Legion is in the body of this priest, and he's at the Vatican, at the church, just wrecking shit. It's got death, it's got mayhem, and it's got some interesting ideas, and the artwork is atmospheric and super dark and exactly what it should be. Then we got Harriet Tubman, Demon Slayer, issue number 3. This was a really solid issue. I still have some problems with the lettering, but this is a high-action issue that actually has a nice flow to the pace of the action. And I understand I've been saying flow and pace a lot tonight, and that's just what happens in my head. But Harriet Tubman, I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. Harriet Tubman is not just helping escaped slaves, she's also helping escaped slaves against the forces of darkness, including vampires. But this one has... it feels exercised, has a lot of action, and it's got some really cool techniques as to how it's utilizing that action. Then we have the plot holes here with issue number 4. Sean Gordon Murphy can do no wrong, in my opinion. This is a really cool book with a really great idea. Fictional characters that are out there to edit things out of books that don't work, to save books and get rid of the books that don't belong. But then there's a character who merges with this like bookworm, and he starts just destroying all these fictional realities all over the place. It's up to them to stop it. So in all of the issues, we've been learning more and more about the individual characters, and in this one, it's all coming back together. They get a plan. They start utilizing what they need to go into that plan, and it's got a nice flow. It's got a nice pace. Can we say something else? Sean Gordon Murphy's great. You should check out this book. And then finally, we got Ribbon Queen here with issue number 5. This is the big explainy issue. Who is the Ribbon Queen? Where does this come from? How did it start? It sets itself back into the past, but it's absolutely fantastic. And in fact, Ribbon Queen is one of those books that always feels dull until you get to the gnarly bit towards the end. This one never felt dull. I really was engaged in this story. I was engaged in this tale of how this all came about. I really like this book. Garth Ennis, Jason Burrows from AWA. So to recap, Ribbon Queen, I like it. Plot holes, I like it. Harriet Tubman, Demon Slayer, one of my favorite issues of that series so far. The Devil That Wears My Face is pure demonic atmospheric gold. Eden Frost has a little bit of work to do, but it was a pretty solid start. Then we got Lunar Lodge. I like that one, but Mortal Terror didn't really quite work for me, though it does get the cover of the week. This art in Gunslinger Spawn is absolutely fantastic. Best art in this series yet, and it gets the smell of the week. Then we got Zoe Thorogood's Hack Slash Back to School. I'm becoming a big fan of Zoe's work. Void Rivals, maintaining its own distinct identity in the midst of the Energon universe. Tenament, atmospheric, dark, horrific gold. From Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino. Dracula, telling the bits in between, a perfect adaptation of the Universal Monsters classic. Yo, Andy Samberg knows how to write a comic, at least with Rick Remender. Really cool concept, really cool characters. That's your sleeper hit of the week. Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong gives us exactly what it delivers, or what it promises. It delivers exactly what it promises. Justice Society of America, if you're a Jeff Johns fan, you need to check that out. J. Garrick The Flash, if you're a Jeff Johns Justice League or Justice Society fan, you might want to check that out, even though it's Jeremy Adams. Titans and Nightwing, solid work from Tom Taylor on those series. Superman, I'm loving what Josh Williamson is doing on that book. Green Lantern War Journal, one of my favorite approaches to Jon Stewart in a very, very long time. Wonder Woman, she walks into an office building. I don't know, what do y'all think? Batman Superman World's Finest, that's one of the finest issues of that series yet. Batman Off-World was very surprisingly good. Captain Marvel is very surprisingly good, as well as Sensational She-Hulk. I like both of those books. Amazing Spider-Man, not so much. Incredible Hulk, really good issue of that one. I like it when Nick Klein's on the art and able to provide the gnarliness. Daredevil Black Armor is only for the most hardcore of fans from that era. Secret Wars Battleworld is more than just for the hardcore fans of that era, but that would help. Carnage #1 just didn't do much for me. However, pick of the week, Somna, issue #1. Loved that book from Distillery. That's what I read. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. That's what I read. That's what I'm thinking. What are you reading? What are you digging? What are you thinking? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. I hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving. I could use the break. Trust me. It's been a day. Anyway, we love you. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Enjoy your week. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop. Boom.